this special Halloween edition of Crypto-Oz-ology. I'm your ghost hostess, Erica. I hope you're having a wonderful fall and a spooky October. For me, it's one of my favorite times of the year. The changing of the leaves and the longer nights marks that Halloween is coming soon, a time for candy, costumes, and of course, scary stories. Oz, of course, is no stranger to horror. Scares and spooks lurk in the deepest corners of Oz, as well as beyond and below its borders. But the story you are about to hear is not from Oz, but is still about Oz. The Ruby Slipper Curse was written by me and just for you. So without further ado, sit back, relax with a warm drink, and let's begin. I can't take it anymore. I need to get this off my chest. It's been 16 years, and I haven't told a single person what I'm about to write down. I don't know who I'm writing this for, or who will even read this, but I just need to get this out. Right now, it's past midnight. I took some pills a while ago to calm me down, but they haven't kicked in yet. I don't know if they will. It takes a handful just to work nowadays. I hear her behind me. She's crying, bawling, screaming in my ears. I hear her all the time now. I thought that when the slippers were finally found, she'd go away, but she's still here. Judy Garland. I used to hear her only at night and see her in my dreams when I didn't take my meds. But now I hear her all the time, and right now I don't dare look behind me because I know I'll see her. I know it sounds crazy. Believe me, it's not something I'd ever talk to about anyone. If someone told me they were being haunted by the ghost of some dead celebrity, I wouldn't believe it myself, but here I am. I'm going to start from the beginning. 16 years ago, I graduated high school, and I was about to leave for college. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, a small town with its only claim to fame being the birthplace of Judy Garland, the star of The Wizard of Oz, which isn't even saying much, because she moved to Los Angeles when she was 3. However, Grand Rapids was proud of their celebrity resident, and even the house she lived in was turned into the Judy Garland Museum. As a kid, I looked up to Judy Garland as well, watched The Wizard of Oz ad nauseum, and even played Dorothy in a production in elementary school, of which I was fiercely proud of. My admiration of Judy Garland sparked my love for the theater, and inspired me to choose theater as my major in college. During high school, I volunteered at the museum, both to impress colleges and for the love of all things Oz and Judy Garland. While working at the museum, I learned a lot about the production of The Wizard of Oz, like how Terry, the dog who played Toto, was paid more than the Munchkin actors. And I learned even more about Judy Garland than I knew before, and how very little glamour her life actually possessed. She developed a drug addiction during production of The Wizard of Oz, downers to help her sleep, uppers to keep her awake, and diet pills and cigarettes to keep her thin. Throughout her life, she was treated as a product instead of as a human being, and in the end, she died of a drug overdose. Even now, I'm struggling to write about this. I think of the suffering she endured during her life. I'm feeling dizzy just thinking about it. By the summer before college, I was trusted enough to step out from the gift shop and act as a docent. I gave tours to groups and told facts about Judy Garland. After the sad end she met, the least I could do was share her story. I was proud of the work I did. I felt honored to show off my knowledge to tourists and permit them to look at Miss Garland's collection. The only thing that made this summer even more special was the fact that we had the ruby slippers. Yes, the ruby slippers. Or at least one of the pairs used in the movie. It was a pair loaned out to the museum from a collector in Los Angeles. After closing, I would always spend a few moments gazing at them through the glass, wishing I could touch them, and dreaming I could tap them together, just like Judy in the movie. My boldness was my downfall. It was my last day in August. I was leaving for college soon, and I would be heading out to California to study theater. I was actually the last person in the museum. Everything had been cleaned up, and I had finished my final sweep of the museum floor to make sure everything was in place. Then I came to the room where the ruby slippers were being kept. They were on a pedestal under plexiglass in the middle of the room. Images of Dorothy and her Oz friends were plastered all over the walls. It was a small museum, and there was very little security. The camera in that room was broken, and I knew that the plexiglass wasn't locked down. This was my chance. I was compelled to touch the ruby slippers. I had dedicated all my free time to this place. In high school, I was a theater kid. Before that, I was Dorothy in the 5th grade play. I deserved to at least hold the ruby slippers in my hands. I carefully lifted the casing off the pedestal and set it on the ground. 5 minutes tops, I assured myself. No one would even know. I didn't have any reservations about what I was doing. I was stupid. I picked up the right shoe and turned it in my hands. It glittered in the spotlight above. It was so small and delicate. Then I thought, I wonder if they would fit. I was always the shortest kid in class. It made sense at the time that Judy's size 5 shoes would fit. I should have known what I was about to do was stupid, but I was compelled to do it. Maybe it was the shoes themselves. I pulled my sneakers off and slipped the heels on. They were snug, but they fit. I took a few careful steps away from the pedestal, and then I clicked my heels 3 times. On the 3rd click, the lights went out. My heart pounded against my rib cage. I didn't want to call out for help because I didn't want to get caught. I looked around the room, hoping to see if the emergency lights were still on. As I turned around, I noticed a faint figure behind me. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I jumped in surprise when I saw Judy Garland in a blue gingham dress, hair in braids, and a basket on her arms. I thought at first it was a cardboard cutout someone had put up before leaving, but then I noticed her feet. She was only wearing socks, because I was wearing her shoes. Then I saw her face. Her eyes were empty, black holes. I froze in place. I couldn't scream. I couldn't cry. I couldn't run. I was stuck, and the shoes kept me in place. Then Judy opened her mouth and screamed. Her voice was ear-piercing. Black ooze poured from her eye sockets and from her wide, round mouth and pooled around her sock-covered feet. Then I blacked out. I don't know how long I was out, but when I awoke, the lights were back on. I was on the floor, and the back of my head hurt. I must have hit it when I fell. Then I looked down at my feet. I was in socks. The ruby slippers were gone. I panicked as I pulled my sneakers back on. My heart was pounding. My breath was labored. I was shaking. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't tell anyone. The shoes just disappeared after I saw a ghost. Plus, what if I was accused of stealing them? I couldn't lose my chance to go to college. I could get arrested. There was only one option I could think of. I replaced the plexiglass on the pedestal and locked up the museum as fast as I could. When I checked my phone, it turned out not much time had passed. I got home at my usual time and went to bed, though I didn't get any sleep. The next morning, the town went crazy. News of the missing ruby slippers had spread quickly, and the police were notified. The FBI were soon involved as well. People speculated wildly about what happened to them. It didn't help that there were no clues left behind. I was questioned by the police that afternoon, but lied and said everything was fine when I left the night before. Since there was no security footage to prove I was lying, they had to take my statement as it was, along with the assurance from the museum that I was trustworthy. Even after all these years, it still hurts to lie to the owner like that. I went to college as planned, and I thought the whole night was behind me. But after a few weeks, I started hearing crying when I was alone. I thought someone in the dorm was having a hard time, until I started hearing it everywhere. Backstage at school, walking around campus at night, in the bathrooms when I was alone. I heard soft sobs everywhere I went when I was alone. Then I started seeing her in my dreams, those black empty sockets dripping inky matter. I started losing sleep, and it affected my studies. That's when a new friend introduced me to Adderall. My pills kept me wired throughout the day, no matter how tired I was, and I couldn't take them at night when I needed to study. But I couldn't avoid sleep all the time. Soon I needed something to help me sleep as well. Another friend sold his Ambien pills, and I would buy them off of him. Not only did they help me sleep, but they kept me from dreaming about Judy. It turned into a vicious cycle. Adderall to keep me awake, Ambien to help me sleep. If I was ever short on cash, which happened often, I would just chug energy drinks to stay awake. Sometimes I would take Adderall with an energy drink to stay awake twice as long. It was staying awake for days at a time, and it would allow me to save my Ambien for when I needed it to fend off Judy. But I couldn't keep at it for long. When I finally crashed, so did my heart. I went into cardiac arrest near the end of my freshman year. I was forced to rest in the hospital. Judy's sobs turned into loud weeping in my hospital room. When I recovered, I discovered that my grades had taken a dive too. The drugs made me work faster, but not better. My brain was fried, and my body was now shot. I ended up dropping out of college. For the next 13 years, I stayed in California. I didn't even want to think about going back to Grand Rapids. I was scared as to what would happen if I did. The search for the slippers was still active when I left college, and there was no way of confessing. I was confessing. Just because I was out of college didn't mean I wanted to go to jail. I kept myself afloat with multiple jobs, though that meant I needed some help to keep my energy up. I get my Adderall from a street dealer to stay awake, though now it takes more to keep me awake. I got my own prescription for sleeping pills, and that keeps Judy out of my head most of the time. Though I still hear her when I'm alone, and they make me feel lightheaded like now. I've lived like this for a long time. Then things changed when the ruby slippers surfaced. When the ruby slippers were finally found, it made national news. All the major news channels were covering it. I got a call from my mom to tell me that everyone in Grand Rapids was celebrating. Even I felt relieved. I had no idea what was happening to them, or how they reappeared, but by that time I didn't care. I was hoping that when the slippers returned, maybe Judy would finally leave me alone. But I was wrong. It's been 2 years since the ruby slippers were found, and since then, I've started seeing Judy, both asleep and when I'm awake. She's crying in my bedroom when I wake up. She's in a crowd in town. She's standing in the bathroom, the kitchen, everywhere, and she is always crying, and it's getting louder. Now when I'm alone, I can't hear anything else. The only sounds in my life now are Judy's howling cries. It's times like this I ask myself, why is she doing this? But I know the answer. I messed with her legacy. Those stupid shoes are the only thing that people remember about her. By touching them and trying them on, I desecrated her memory. I touched her things, and now I'm paying for it. I can't take much more of this. I've taken a lot of sleeping pills tonight, but they don't work anymore. None of my pills work anymore. All they do is make me feel nauseous, just like now. It's nearly 3 a.m. now. Judy Garland is behind me right now, and she is still crying. I'm writing this right now because I don't know what to do next. Whatever happens, I just want the world to know what I did and why it turned out the way I did. I have no one else but to blame but myself, and for that I am sorry. I'm sorry to the Judy Garland Museum. I'm sorry to the collector who loaned the slippers to the museum. Above all, I am so sorry, Judy Garland, for treating your shoes like toys. I'm starting to feel sleepy right now. I'm going to stop now and get some sleep. Maybe Judy will let me rest peacefully now. This letter was found in a Los Angeles apartment beside the body of a 34-year-old female. The coroner deemed her death as an accidental overdose and had passed away shortly after writing the letter. Her family has requested that her identity remain anonymous. Due to her mental state and history of drug addiction, the woman's note has been dismissed as evidence in the Ruby Slipper case of 2005 and does not fit the requirements of an official confession. Welcome back, friends. It's Erica again. I hope you enjoyed this spooky tale. Remember to honor those who have gone before you and not to make light of their achievements. Halloween is the time of year when the veil between worlds is thinnest and you never know what you may encounter. If you see someone dressed as a ghost in a bedsheet, be sure to check for feet. Remember, whether you're going out trick-or-treating or staying in and watching a movie, stay safe. And don't forget to like and subscribe to OzConnection for more content. Thanks for watching, and happy Halloween, my Aussie friends. And for those who observe it, blessed Samhain.